Welcome back to the Youth and Policy Podcast, the podcast where we discuss political ideology, policy, current day events, and more. I'm your host, Drew Hansen, and joining us today is my co-host, John, and our host, Matt from the Democratic Hype House. How's everybody doing today?
Yeah, pretty good. Not too bad.
So, Matt, how exactly, you're the founder of the DHH. What was the need, in your opinion, to create the Dem Hype House?
Yeah, definitely. So, I think I joined TikTok in March, and I really had no idea what it was about. But as I started creating my own political content and videos, I noticed there was a lot of right-wing content and a lot of right-wing creators on the app, most notably the conservative Hype House, the Republican Hype House, who are just amassing thousands and thousands and thousands of followers. At the time, there was this liberal Hype House, but they were very fractured, it seemed like, and they kind of dissolved pretty quickly soon thereafter. And I really wanted to create something with fellow kind of left-wing, center-of-left creators on the app that would combat this right-wing, oftentimes misinformation, and ultimately build a space where folks on the left on TikTok could come together, create content, and hopefully educate folks no matter how old they are.
You mentioned, I guess, past hype houses where they implement left-wing creators. How do you, I guess, get longevity with your group of your group of people? I guess it's been around. You've had this around how long?
Yeah, since I think the first week of April is when we started.
Yeah. So how do you go about longevity and whatnot?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for us, at least initially, I really wanted to bring creators in who were team players and who wanted and shared the same vision and same goals. Now, it doesn't mean we had the same ideologies, because we don't. And that's one of the challenges, right? I think as opposed to Republican Hype House, conservative Hype House, it's all Trump all the time. And it's very, doesn't really differentiate from that in terms of their ideology. But for us, I wanted to bring in a diverse group of creators and certainly different ideologies, from more moderate Democrats to folks who are leftists and everything in between. And it's really just about keeping the same goal in mind of moving the conversation on TikTok left. But I think it starts with bringing in good people. And when we first started bringing in, it was Ashley, myself, Teddy, Emmy, who has since stopped making political videos. But then we soon brought in, folks like Drew, who have been amazing, and just building out creators who are going to be team players. And so it just has worked out, and have kept the drama to a minimum, which is good.
Yeah, especially speaking on the drama, obviously I'm hosting the podcast, but I'm also in the Dem Hype House. Matt brought me in. And one thing that I have noticed with, some of our account and others compared to others is that it is a bit more well organized, and we're not typically involved in drama compared to that. And Matt, how exactly, what's the behind the scenes of keeping a well organized account? And we've had pretty consistent growth on TikTok. You think you being a more experienced guy opposed to a teenager running it plays into that? How have you managed us to keep this well of organization and stayed consistent?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Drew, I think the fact that I think it is a benefit that, the fact I'm 23, been through college and have a little bit more experience, definitely managing teams in various aspects of my career so far and life in college, has been really helpful. But I think it's also just purposely, finding folks who really want to do this, who are educated, who are smart, and people who just frankly will kind of stay away from that drama, and I think being purposeful about who we bring in is really important to me. And I think the other part of it too is, we want people in DHH who it's more than just the clout. It's actually about talking about genuine things and spreading good information and people learning. And so bringing in people who believe in that is a big part of that as well. And then I think too, when something does happen or drama comes and whatnot, being able, I think as a group, we've done a good job of being able to resolve some of those issues and keep it pretty level. So I think those kind of combine to create a pretty cohesive unit.
Yeah, you were talking before about combating the right, and I want to ask for Down Hype House, how do you guys go about that? I mean, I personally kind of know, but do you think that what you do is effective in a way because the right on TikTok at least is at times conservative Hype House like it had 1 million followers, Republican Hype House has 1 million followers. How do you combat the right, and especially with all the hysteria and whatnot?
Yeah, definitely. It's a tricky question. I think, look, RHH is going to have their 1 million followers. The Cam Higby Hype House, is going to have his 1.5 mil now, and for us, they can do their thing, right? We cannot control the TikTok algorithm and what gets popular for them. But we can do is that we can call out their lies and misinformation whenever we can, whenever possible, right? Just for an example, yesterday, popular Today is America creator with over 100,000 followers posted a fake news article about a blacks only restaurant. And so when I corrected that in my own video, she took it down. But if I did not correct that, that information just would have been out there into the ether and people would have consumed that and said, oh my God, the Democrats are doing what? So it's important for all of us on political TikTok or whoever to continue to correct misinformation. The other thing is just giving people the resources to learn and educate on their own. I don't want anyone to look at my videos or Drew's videos or whoever, whether DHH or anywhere on TikTok, and say, okay, I'm done. Like, that's cool. I believe what you said. No, I want you to investigate and then do research on your own. That's certainly, I think the balance, the tricky part is that on TikTok, TikTok rewards short, quick content and it's not informative and it's just whatever, right? It's inflammatory content. And that's what Republican Hype House does so well. Good for them. So we try to do a little bit of a balance. We want to get those videos on the FYP, but we also want to inform people. So that's kind of how we engage with right-wing creators and try to spread our own good information.
Yeah, and specific to content creating, we all knew that like a big peak of like at least non-political people being involved in political TikTok was around the election, like all building up to the election. The primaries last year is kind of the hype, and how is your thought process and like the importance of making content, like what exactly you would create then, and even going forward now that the election's over and whatever happens today probably won't do much going forward. What's next after this, and then can you expand a little bit on the thought process beforehand as well?
Yeah, I think certainly moving forward, the work, of course, isn't over now that the election is over. And I'm hoping, hopefully this will happen. All the big creators that got involved and, joined the TikTok for Biden, Gen Z for Change, hopefully they'll continue to stay involved and speak out and use their platforms to educate their followers. And, we'll continue to push big influencers to do that. I think for myself moving forward, it's going to be, continuing to try and help folks again educate themselves or investigate new topics. But I think it's also again continuing to combat right-wing misinformation on the website. I think what's so powerful about TikTok, and again, it's not like political TikTok has been around for that long, but what's so powerful is that you have teenagers, young folks, people who maybe are not that interested in politics. These videos come up on their feeds and they're consuming this information, right? And so they're either going to consume the right-wing misinformation or ours, right? And so if we just let the right-wing misinformation go unattacked or unresponded to, they'll consume that. So I think people are recognizing more and more the importance of putting out information on TikTok as a means of getting people educated and involved. And so the direction that I see for DHH and for my own personal account is, the fight continues beyond just Trump, and it's about how do we make a better future? How do we convince people to believe in like left-wing ideologies and get them out of that Republican mindset or Ben Shapiro or Cam Higby or whoever?
Yeah. What I've always wanted to ask you, well, I've been Verbum for about 5 months or so.
Mhm.
Drew just joined recently. You've been able to reach out to like news agencies. I think you did an interview on ABC News and whatnot. How did you branch out of the TikTok bubble, I guess, in your how'd you get into, I guess, we want to call the real world? Because honestly, TikTok doesn't really seem real sometimes.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. It seems like its own reality, right? Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the most important things that we can be doing, right? I think, especially with political TikTok, a lot of people get caught up in the drama or the bubble or this or that, whatever. Like, yes, ideologies are important and these intense discussions, debates are very important. And I agree that's wonderful. But to reach out to like the masses and get people interested in TikTok and move the needle forward on getting, of course, Democratic Party invested and candidates invested and whoever else invested on TikTok, that was one of my goals, right? And so from the very beginning, of course, having connections with various different campaigns that led to other connections with some reporters, and some just reached out because they saw what we created at DHH and were interested in this. So that's kind of how that happened. But I think it's important for everyone on TikTok, so especially political TikTok, to understand that this goes beyond just this community that has been created, and to understand the power that if they have a platform, understand the power of their platform and what they can do.
Yeah, and expanding on that, we did have a lot of campaigns reach out. So, what are those campaigns, and how do you think political TikTok can actually influence like specific campaigns? Because I know some campaigns reached out to us, and how do you think that process is going to move forward in the future? Like, should these campaigns really be targeting TikTok to get the younger demographic? How do you think that's going to end up playing out if TikTok isn't something that dies out in the near future and stays more popular?
Right. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest questions, right? Is I think folks in the party, or at least people in positions of power, have been very hesitant to engage in TikTok. Of course, my favorite quote is, I think right around the Trump was threatening to ban TikTok, and Chuck Schumer comes out and says, I don't really care. It's just, this kind of this disconnect between people who are in positions of power that are on the left, if you want to call Chuck Schumer on the left, and but something the Ossoff campaign has done really well, and what they recognize is that they say we want to meet young people where they're at. And so obviously they've done very, very well on TikTok. They have millions of views. They have hundreds of thousands of followers. And will that translate to him winning tonight? Maybe, I don't know. But if it gets young people more engaged, it's really, really, really worth it. And in terms, we're seeing a lot more interest now in TikTok, in different campaigns, in other people. Now, we've had politicians that have joined TikTok before. We've had some campaigns who have, created pages. But I think even, Bernie I don't think he even knew about TikTok or knew what was happening. But because his campaign staff, very lower level campaign staff, got on TikTok, he quickly amassed like 500,000 followers. And this is amazing for brand recognition, for fundraising, for whatever else you want to do. So I think we're going to continue to see it. We're going to see more of it. And even when the election was ramping up, some creators got paid to do, ads for different politicians, or, hey, if you're in this state, vote for this person. So it'll definitely continue ramping up.
Yeah. So with that, like I guess this what is it we call it? The surge of like young people getting into politics. Personally, in my circle, I have a lot of people who are anti-capitalists and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have a lot of liberals in general. How do you think people go about? I mean, these people are also, I want to say, 14 to 17 around. How do you think these people, if they aren't in these hype houses, how do they go about changing, I guess, their landscape? How do they go about just changing, what's going on in the world and what they feel like is important?
Are you talking just like individual creators or just like people who exist on TikTok?
Because you have a platform where you're able to implement change, you're able to, correct lies. How do the viewers, or how do the, I guess, people who are young, who are seeing your videos, how do they go about, changing their landscapes?
Yeah, definitely. No, that's an amazing question. Thank you so much for asking, because it's super important. I get this all the time. And people say, Matt, I don't know what to do. I can't vote. I don't know how to, I don't know what to do to help. And I care about these issues. I care about climate change. I care about economic inequality, but I don't know what to do in my life. but there's always things that you could do in your own local community that will help. And honestly, whether you are a leftist, a liberal, whatever, like that is how we're going to win the future. That's how we're going to win America, is organizing in local communities, whether that be in rural America or in a big city. We need to organize in our local communities to make change happen. And so what I tell folks who ask me that question, or even now, is get involved, whether in your school, even something as simple as joining student council or doing debate, or anything that you can do to get involved in that capacity is an amazing idea. There are so many opportunities as well for local races, right? Obviously, everyone cares about president, everyone cares about the Senate races, but getting involved in those local races for mayor, for city council person, for whatever's your school board, it doesn't even have to be that big. Meeting some of these people is super important, and you can do that. And people who are running are more than happy to take volunteers to help them with their campaign. So what I recommend, if you are someone who wants to be involved but doesn't know exactly how, look at who's running in your local races, look at their website, think about the things or see the things that they're posting about, and find a way to reach out and get involved with them and see if you can help. I guarantee you that will lead you to a lot of connections as well.
You also have your personal account. It's in there. That liberal guy. You were talking about how you do have leftists in your house, and I do want to ask, how do you personally, like? Because I've seen your live streams when you talk to people. They ask about Medicare for all, or ask about how do you? Well, that's not leftist, obviously, but I'm saying you have to conflict with also people who are against liberalism and against, I guess you're I don't know if you're moderate or a social democrat. Well, it doesn't matter. How do you, I guess, go about combating certain, I guess, people who are, against, your own ideology on the left, at least?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so for me, I actually wouldn't even describe myself as liberal. It just kind of happened that way. I think I remember when I first joined. Well, I first joined, and I joined as like a name that I use for my Instagram. So not even that. But when I started making political videos, I remember seeing like this account that was like that conservative girl or like that Republican girl or something. I'm like, maybe I'll just do that liberal guy, right? I would describe my ideology as more like socialdem, but like in the future, transitioning to democratic socialism, when we build through the Democratic Party and elect people more to the left than we currently have now. So that's my kind of ideal vision. But honestly, I don't really care about ideologies in particular. And I think right now, at least for me, I'm focusing on what we can do right now, working within electoralism. But yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I know there certainly are a lot of leftists out there who see my name and they say, "Oh, liberal, that's terrible. Stop being a lib." And it's like, okay, that's fine. Like, that's not actually what I believe, but like, we can talk about that. I am always open to engage with whoever, whether that's someone who is a leftist, whether someone's more moderate or on the right or whatever it is, and just talk about issues. And, I think when I talk to people who are like communists or even, whatever, just people who are leftists, telling them like why I'm currently socialdem and engaging in that discussion is really important to me. But yeah, I mean, there are definitely people who act in bad faith and don't really care, and that's okay. But as long as we're moving in the same direction, I think that's a good deal. And we can talk about our differences as well. But that's my take on it.
Yeah, so you're somebody who's a lot older, like we said before, than the other people on the platform, and expanding on what people can do in their local communities. Coming from you, someone who's more mature, like you've mentioned, you're a lot more focused on pragmatism right now and making things better. What can a lot of these kids do when they do like when a 15-year-old amasses a platform? A lot of the times they don't know what to do with it effectively. So coming from a position where you are mature and you've used your platform very effectively, what are the best ways you think, once you have that, to enact change with the platform specifically on a broader level? Like, what are the different things that you can set up?
Yeah. So the number one thing, if you get to a point where you have a platform or you're posting on something like DHH or posting just on your own personal channel, yeah, that's a lot of power. You have to decide how you use it. I do think, number one, because you have that platform, it allows you to then more easily call out other creators who post misinformation. So that's a big thing, and like I don't if people have their own, like, oh my God, I love Trump. Okay, great, good for you. If people are spreading lies, like genuine lies, like I think everyone should just call them out and say, no, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, whoever it is. And you'll notice, I think this actually works because if you look at the people on RHH, if you look at whatever, every time you call them out, like the whole vaccines cause infertility, that whole thing that RHH posted, when people called them out for it, the video was deleted. And this continues to happen. So that's the number one thing I would say. Number two, I think is just being conscious and aware of the information that you are putting out there, and thinking before you post about something, right? So, of course, number one, checking sources, checking that everything that you say is accurate and correct. But the other thing is thinking about how your message is going to be interpreted by your audience. Is something that's super big and something that I think about all the time. And, obviously thinking, maybe thinking, well, what will go viral or not go viral, but even more so thinking, is someone going to take away something from this video? Even in the videos where I make fun of Republicans, even in the videos where I talk about whatever, there's always a purpose behind it. Whether that's making the Republican Party look stupid because they are, whether that's poking fun at the Arizona GOP Twitter account, which is just outrageous. There's always a purpose and point to what I'm posting, what I'm doing. So I think being conscious of what you're putting out there on the internet is super important, and knowing obviously this stuff will be here forever. So keep that in mind too.
Yeah. Do you think that a lot of people go about it the wrong way? I mean, because like I think I followed your account recently because I keep getting all your old videos. But do you think like people are going about it on the platform the wrong way, meaning that they do it in some, like I've seen people who develop like superiority complexes in a sense when they are, debunking videos. And when you're talking about, advancing discourse and trying to have a more honest platform, do you think that, in TikTok, I guess having this massive amount of clout, as Drew was saying, do you think people take it the wrong way in a sense, I guess, on the platform?
Yeah, I mean, I do think so. I think once you get to that certain level of followers or whatever it is, that platform, you do have a responsibility. And going back to the whole, debunking thing, I know that is very popular. I think if it's a matter of, differing opinion, or, hey, we have conflicting studies about this one thing, or it's this discussion on abortion, whatever it is, like, oh, I debunked you on this economics. I hate that. Like we should be able to have a genuine discussion about like the implications of a certain economic policy or this discussion. Like, I think I'm more so talking about like the genuine, like straight up lies. But yeah, there's definitely that culture. I do think people build this superiority complex. And what I will say is that no one knows everything, right? We all have things to learn. I have so much to learn in my life about politics, about economics, about literally everything. And so does everyone else. Okay. Just because someone puts a video out there and they're super confident about it and they're super, oh my God, I'm right, that doesn't mean that they are right. Okay. Even if we agree with someone else, maybe they're not totally right either. So I do think that individual creators should kind of take a step back and look and say, well, is what I believe in right? You always have to be like self-critiquing your own beliefs so you can come to a greater conclusion or a greater truth for yourself. And whatever direction that leads you in, that's great. But yeah, I think that happens unfortunately more on the right in terms of people who have this ego about what they're posting, and then they just post random whatever out there in the ether. But yeah, it's always important to kind of look internally and criticize your own beliefs and go from there.
Speaking of like egos, we'll give you an opportunity here we know that DHH specifically compared to a lot of the other groups, like obviously Republican Hype House and Conservative Hype House have a lot of followers, but DHH has also been very well recognized. And I think it's important to talk about who exactly is recognizing us, who has reached out to DHH on the national scale, or do you still feel like you're getting a decent amount of attention compared to these other ones? Who's contacted you, and like what real change is getting recognized here?
Yeah, definitely. I think prior to the election, leading up to the election, we had a lot of interest from national media. We had folks from NBC, especially their Stay Tuned, which is their Snapchat story, digital front. that they do. We had a great interview with ABC. We've had multiple mentions in articles, CNN. I was fortunate enough to be a part of the DNC. What was that, in August, I think, something like that. I don't have time anymore. So, all of that was amazing. Now, of course, with the election being over, you can't get as many clicks now, but I just saw an article yesterday in NBC talking about how Gen Z on TikTok was helping the Georgia runoffs. And that's so cool. I love seeing that media attention still. So you know what? We're going to keep doing our thing at DHH. We're going to keep putting out as much great content as possible. And the media cycles will ebb and flow. But I think TikTok will continue to grow, and we'll hopefully still be around.
Yeah. And speaking of, I guess, Gen Z and I guess the Georgia runoffs, and at the time of this recording, we don't know what's going on. Do you think that things will die? I think we talked about this a little bit, but I think a lot of people talk about the hype, resorting to politics. So, like, a lot of conservatives bring up like the graph when it comes to things like Black Lives Matter, or when it speaks during election years, or politics in general. When we're in this like limbo period where we don't really have elections coming up until I guess the end of 2022, where does politics go about at this point? Where do we go from here? Like, how do we how do we go about talking about issues that still affect us?
Yeah, definitely, John. I think with Trump defeated, that's great. That was just the very, 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 very beginning of what we need to do moving forward. There are so many things that we need to talk about, and so many things that we can do with our platforms and our generation that need to change now. Now, I am hoping with all of my heart that John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock win in Georgia and we win the Senate. And at that point, what we can do is do everything we can to pressure the Senate and the House to act on important issues, and Joe Biden, like climate change and like healthcare, et cetera. We're not always going to win, but we need to continue to do that. If they don't win, our mission still stays the same. Like, the fight doesn't end just because the election is over or the Georgia runoffs are over. I think the thing that people, unfortunately, what happens is that people obviously get very discouraged pretty quickly with electoral politics, and I totally understand that. It's not great. There are so many things that we could do to make it better and make it more fair for us all as Americans. But, look, it doesn't matter whether the Georgia runoffs go our way or not. We need to continue pushing for progressive policies that we generally all agree on. Things like Medicare for all, things like a Green New Deal, these policy positions. And look, Donald Trump is not going away. The right wing is not going away just because he was defeated. And so there is going to be, well, number one, you had 74 million Americans who still voted for Donald Trump after 4 years of just absolute BS. That's number one. Number two is that you still have a large contingent of this country, a right-wing population, who just believe in lies and in just falsities. And so how do we combat that? So pushing for progressive policies, combating misinformation, pushing back on right-wing narratives, these are all things that we can do moving forward for many years to come.
Good. Thank you so much for coming on. This was a great conversation, and I, really good luck in the future, and thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you both for having me on, and
Thank you, Matt.
I'm excited for what all we can do in the future.
All right.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to continue to support us, you can do so by checking out our Instagram pages at Youth in Policy and at Watch Verbum. You can also look at our website at www.yipinstitute.com. Make sure to follow our page as we upload weekly. Have a great day.